50 hidden gems of Alaska that no one talks about. And honestly, that's a crime. Most people who think about Alaska think about one thing. It's big, it's cold, and it's far away. And sure, all of that is true. But here is what they don't tell you. Alaska is the most extraordinary place in North America. Maybe on Earth. It has more coastline than the entire rest of the United States combined. More active volcanoes than all other U.S. states put together. Glaciers the size of entire countries. Bears so numerous they outnumber some cities. A mountain so tall that it creates its own weather system. Rivers no road has ever crossed. Forests that have never heard a chainsaw. I put together 50 of the most incredible hidden gems, geography facts, wild history moments, and things that people who truly know Alaska love about it. Some of these will stop you cold. Some will make you laugh. And at least one of them, I guarantee, is going to make you want to quit your job and move north. Let's go. Starting with number 1. Gems 1 to 10. The geography will rewire your brain. Gem number 1. Alaska is so large that if you cut it in half, Texas would become the third largest state. Let that settle in. Alaska covers 663,268 square miles, more than twice the size of Texas. It is larger than the next 3 biggest states, Texas, California, and Montana combined. But the size stats that really get people are the ones about the edges. Alaska has 33,904 miles of coastline, more than all other U.S. states combined. More than the entire rest of the country stitched together end to end. The coastline of Alaska alone is longer than the Earth's circumference at the equator, divided by 1.5. And here's the one nobody expects. Alaska is simultaneously the northernmost, westernmost, and easternmost state in the United States. The Aleutian Islands extend so far west across the 181st meridian, the international dateline, that they technically cross into the Eastern Hemisphere. Alaska touches tomorrow. The state has 17 of the 20 highest mountain peaks in the United States. It has over 3 million lakes, over 100,000 glaciers, more than 130 volcanoes, 90 of which are considered potentially active. Alaska is not just a state, it is a geological event. Gem 2. Denali, the tallest mountain in North America, and the numbers don't come close to preparing you for it. Denali, in the Alaska Range, stands 20,310 feet above sea level, the highest peak in North America. But sea level measurements don't capture what makes Denali uniquely extraordinary. Because Denali rises from a base elevation of roughly 2,000 feet. Its vertical rise from base to summit is approximately 18,000 feet, greater than Everest's base to summit rise of about 12,000 feet. By the measure of actual vertical relief, how much mountain you're actually looking at, Denali is the tallest mountain on Earth. Not Everest, Denali. The mountain creates its own weather systems. The cold air at high latitudes means the atmosphere is thinner at altitude than it would be in the Himalayas at the same height. Climbers on Denali experience effective altitudes significantly higher than the actual elevation. It is one of the most technically and physiologically challenging high-altitude climbs in the world. On a clear day, from the right vantage point on the park's highway, Denali appears on the horizon like something that was assembled by a different physics than the rest of the landscape. It doesn't look real. It looks like someone put a backdrop up behind Alaska and forgot to make it proportionate. Only about 1,300 climbers attempt Denali each year. About 60% reach the summit. The mountain has claimed over 100 lives. It is majestic, beautiful, and completely indifferent to human ambition. Gem 3. The Malaspina Glacier, larger than the entire state of Rhode Island, and most people have never heard its name. Alaska has over 100,000 glaciers, covering roughly 5% of the state's total area. That's a number so large it's hard to visualize. Let me give you one specific glacier to wrap your head around. The Malaspina Glacier near Yakutat in southeast Alaska, covers approximately 1,500 square miles. Rhode Island is 1,045 square miles. The Malaspina is larger than Rhode Island by a significant margin, and it is just one of Alaska's 100,000 glaciers. The Malaspina is what's called a Piedmont glacier, a glacier that has spilled out from a mountain valley onto a flat coastal plain and spread into a massive lobe. From the air, it looks like an enormous frozen lake with mountains rising behind it. Its surface is so vast that it generates its own local wind patterns and weather. Alaska's glaciers are retreating. Many of them have pulled back miles from where they were a century ago. The Columbia Glacier in Prince William Sound has retreated over 15 miles since 1980. Glaciologist records going back to the 1700s document an unbroken trend of glacial retreat across the state. Alaska's ice is one of the clearest, most visible indicators of planetary change, and it is changing rapidly. Gem 4. Gates of the Arctic National Park, the most remote national park in the United States, and one where you cannot arrive by road. Not because the road is hard, because there is no road. Gates of the Arctic National Park sits entirely above the Arctic Circle in the Brooks Range of northern Alaska. It covers 8.4 million acres, larger than Switzerland, and has 0 paved roads, 0 visitor centers, and 0 established trails. There are no campgrounds. There are no ranger stations you can walk to. To get in, you fly bush plane or helicopter to a river gravel bar, a remote village, or wherever the pilot can find a place to land. Then, you're on your own. Annual visitation, roughly 11,000 people per year. For comparison, Grand Canyon National Park sees over 6 million. Gates of the Arctic gets about 11,000 in a park twice the size of Switzerland. The park was named by explorer and conservationist Robert Marshall, who in the 1930s pushed through the Brooks Range on foot and called 2 prominent peaks the gates to the Arctic wilderness beyond. His advocacy, along with that of others, eventually led to the park's establishment in 1980. Inside Gates of the Arctic, caribou herds in the tens of thousands, wolves, grizzlies, Dall sheep on the ridgelines, rivers that have never been dammed, valleys that have never heard a motor. The night sky above the Arctic Circle, away from every light source on Earth, is so dense with stars, it seems structural, like the darkness is holding them up. Gem 5. Wrangell St. Elias National Park, the largest national park in the United States, larger than the entire country of Switzerland, and bigger than 6 U.S. states. Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve covers 13.2 million acres. Yellowstone National Park, which most Americans think of as enormous, covers about 2.2 million acres. Wrangell St. Elias is 6 times larger than Yellowstone. The park contains the convergence of 4 major mountain ranges: the Wrangell, St. Elias, Alaska, and Chugach, and the result is the greatest concentration of high peaks in North America. 9 of the 16 highest peaks in the United States are within this park. The St. Elias Mountains within the park include Mount St. Elias at 18,008 feet, the second highest peak in the United States. The Bagley Ice Field within the park is the largest subpolar ice field in North America. The Nabesna Glacier, also within the park, is the longest valley glacier in North America at 75 miles long. The park is so large and so complex that scientists have been studying it for decades and still don't have a complete inventory of its species, geological features, or archaeological sites. There are historic copper mines inside the park. The Kennecott Mines, a national historic landmark that once produced some of the richest copper ore in the world. The ghost town of Kennecott still stands, perfectly preserved by the cold, at the end of a 60-mile gravel road. Wrangell St. Elias gets about 80,000 visitors per year. Yellowstone gets 4 million. The disproportion makes no sense and is entirely Alaska's gain. Gem 6. Katmai National Park and Brooks Falls, the greatest wildlife spectacle in North America and one of the most underappreciated experiences on the continent. Katmai National Park, on the Alaska Peninsula, covers 4 million acres of volcanic landscape, glaciers, and coastline. Most people who've heard of it know it for one thing: Brooks Falls. Every July, sockeye salmon migrate up the Brooks River to reach their spawning grounds. To get there, they have to clear Brooks Falls, a 6-foot waterfall. And waiting at the top, lined up along the lip of the falls like fishermen at a buffet, are brown bears. At peak season, up to 60 bears gather at Brooks Falls simultaneously. The bears weigh up to 1,400 pounds and catch leaping salmon directly out of the air. The salmon jump. The bears catch them. Sometimes the salmon fly straight into an open mouth. It is one of the most extraordinary natural spectacles on Earth. The Fat Bear Week contest, where the public votes online for the bear that gained the most weight preparing for hibernation, has become a global internet phenomenon, turning individual named bears into celebrities. Bear 747, a male who weighs roughly 1,400 pounds at peak season, has won multiple times and has a fan base larger than some professional athletes. You can watch Brooks Falls live via webcam on the NPS website 24 hours a day during season. The entire world tunes in. It never gets old. Gem 7. Kenai Fjords National Park, where glaciers meet the ocean and the wildlife density will make you question every other nature experience you've ever had. Kenai Fjords National Park on the Kenai Peninsula preserves a stunning coastline where tidewater glaciers flow directly into the Gulf of Alaska, calving icebergs into fjords teeming with wildlife. The park is centered on the Harding Ice Field, one of the largest ice fields in the United States, which feeds over 40 glaciers flowing in all directions from a central plateau of ice. Hiking the Harding Icefield Trail from Exit Glacier is one of the great hikes in Alaska. You gain roughly 3,000 feet in elevation over about 4 miles, emerging onto a vast, silent plateau of ancient ice, where the only thing between you and the horizon is white. Clouds form below you. The scale dismantles something in your brain. From the water, Kenai Fjords is even more extraordinary. Day trip boats from Seward take you into the fjords to see stellar sea lions, Dall's porpoises, orcas, humpback whales, sea otters floating on their backs, tufted puffins, horned puffins, murres, kittiwakes, and then a tidewater glacier the size of a city block calving into the water 200 yards from your boat. The sound of a glacier calving, a crack like thunder that rolls across the water seconds after you see the ice fall, is a sound you hear in your chest before you hear it in your ears. Gem 8. The Pribilof Islands, possibly the greatest wildlife spectacle in the United States, sitting in the Bering Sea, visited by almost no one. The Pribilof Islands, primarily St. Paul and St. George, sit in the middle of the Bering Sea, about 750 miles west of Anchorage, and accessible only by small plane. They are among the most remote inhabited places in the United States, and they are extraordinary. Every summer, over 1 million northern fur seals haul out on the beaches of the Pribilofs to breed. 1 million fur seals. The noise, the smell, the sheer biological abundance of it is overwhelming in the most magnificent way possible. The Pribilofs host the largest fur seal rookeries in the world. The sea cliffs of St. George, considered by ornithologists to be among the finest seabird nesting sites in the northern hemisphere, host over 2 million seabirds of multiple species: thick-billed murreys, red-faced cormorants, red-legged kittiwakes, tufted puffins. The birds nest in such density that the cliff faces appear to be moving. The Pribilofs are also home to the Unhinged Alaska people who have lived here for thousands of years and whose culture and history is one of the most remarkable and least told stories in American indigenous history. The islands deserve 10 times the visitors they receive. Gem 9. The Aleutian Islands, a 1,200-mile volcanic archipelago stretching from Alaska toward Japan, and the site of the only land battle of World War II fought on American soil. The Aleutian Islands extend 1,200 miles southwest from the Alaska Peninsula in a sweeping arc toward Russia and Japan, the longest archipelago in the world. The islands are the exposed peaks of an underwater volcanic mountain chain sitting along one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. There are 57 volcanoes in the Aleutians alone, many of them active. Shishaldin volcano on Unimak Island is one of the most perfectly symmetrical volcanic cones in the world, a near-perfect triangle rising from the sea. It erupts frequently. Nobody really notices because there's almost nobody there to notice. During World War II, Japanese forces invaded and occupied Attu and Kiska Islands in the Western Aleutians in June 1942, the only occupation of American soil during the war. The Battle of Attu in May 1943 was one of the bloodiest island campaigns in the Pacific Theater. American forces eventually retook both islands, but the battle cost nearly 600 American lives and virtually all of the approximately 2,650 Japanese defenders, most of whom died in a final banzai charge rather than surrender. Today, Attu is uninhabited. The rusted equipment, the foxholes, the remnants of an extraordinary and largely forgotten American sacrifice are still there, being slowly reclaimed by the tundra. Gem 10, the midnight sun, and what it actually does to a human being to experience it. Everyone knows Alaska has the midnight sun, but knowing it intellectually and experiencing it are completely different things. At the summer solstice, Barrow, Alaska's northernmost city, gets 84 consecutive days of sunlight. The sun does not set, not for nearly 3 months. It dips toward the horizon, it circles, it rises again, but it never goes below the edge of the world. In Fairbanks, the solstice brings about 21 hours and 49 minutes of daylight, with the sun barely dipping below the horizon at midnight before rising again. In Anchorage, the longest day is about 19 and a half hours. What this does to humans is profound and a little disorienting. Energy levels surge. Sleep becomes strange. You need blackout curtains or an eye mask, or you simply don't sleep because your body insists that sun means day. People mow their lawns at midnight. Kids play outside at 11 p.m. Restaurants fill up at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. The flip side, polar night. In Barrow, the sun sets in mid-November and doesn't rise again for 65 days. 65 consecutive days of darkness. The emotional and psychological weight of that, the way it settles into your body over weeks, is something that Alaskans talk about honestly, and that visitors find difficult to fully imagine until they've been there. Light in Alaska is not background. It is the story. Gems 11 to 20. Hidden places only Alaskans know. Gem 11, Chena, hot springs resort near Fairbanks, natural geothermal hot springs, northern lights overhead, and an ice museum that stays frozen year-round. Chena Hot Springs sits about 60 miles northeast of Fairbanks, accessible by paved road, which is almost unusual for a place this special. Natural geothermal water bubbles up at around 106 degrees Fahrenheit into outdoor rock pools, surrounded by boreal forest. In winter, soaking in those hot springs while the northern lights pulse green and violet across the sky above you, the steam rising off the water into the Arctic cold, is one of those experiences that resets your entire definition of what a good evening looks like. The resort also maintains an ice museum, a series of rooms and sculptures carved entirely from ice and kept at a constant 25 degrees Fahrenheit year-round using a geothermal cooling system. Yes, they use the same geothermal energy that heats the hot springs to keep an ice museum frozen in summer. The sculptures are extraordinary, and the whole concept is wonderfully, perfectly Alaskan. Gem 12, Kennecott, a perfectly preserved copper mining ghost town inside Wrangell St. Elias, sitting at the foot of a glacier, looking like it was abandoned yesterday. The Kennecott mines operated from 1903 to 1938, extracting some of the richest copper ore ever discovered, ore so pure it assayed at up to 70% copper. At its peak, the mines produced more copper than almost any operation in the world. Then the ore ran out. The company left in 5 days in 1938, leaving everything behind. Everything is still there. The 14-story mill building, the power plant, the hospital, the school, and the bunkhouses. All painted in the original red and white, preserved by the cold and dry air of the Alaska interior. The glaciers are right there. Kennecott Glacier, spelled differently from the town, flows just beside the settlement. Getting there requires driving 60 miles of gravel road from the nearest highway. There is a small lodge and a handful of residents. But the experience of walking those empty buildings, with the glacier groaning next to you and the Wrangell Mountains towering overhead, it is one of the most haunting, beautiful places in Alaska. Gem 13. Sitka, Alaska's most historically rich city, former capital of Russian America, and one of the most beautiful small cities in the United States. Sitka sits on Baranof Island in southeast Alaska, which is accessible only by boat or small plane, and it was once the most important city on the entire Pacific coast of North America. When Russia controlled Alaska, Sitka, then called Novo-Arkhangelsk, was the capital of Russian America, a fur-trading empire that stretched from Alaska down to Northern California. At its peak in the early 1800s, it was a sophisticated city with a library, a hospital, a shipyard, and a social scene that rivaled cities on the East Coast. The Russian transfer of Alaska to the United States took place in Sitka on October 18, 1867, for the sum of $7.2 million, or about 2 cents per acre. The date is still celebrated in Alaska as Alaska Day. The St. Michael's Cathedral, a Russian Orthodox church built in 1848 and rebuilt after a fire in 1966, still stands in the center of town, an onion dome rising incongruously and magnificently from a southeast Alaska rainforest. Sitka has brown bears, sea otters in the harbor, old-growth Sitka spruce rainforest, extraordinary fishing, and the most layered, compelling history of any small city in Alaska. It is consistently one of the most under-visited gems in the state. Gem 14, Hatcher Pass, an alpine paradise less than 2 hours from Anchorage that most visitors never find. Hatcher Pass sits in the Talkeetna Mountains northeast of Anchorage at elevations above 3,000 feet, and it is one of the most stunning alpine landscapes in Alaska, and one of the most accessible. The drive up to the pass through the Matanuska-Susitna Valley passes through wildflower meadows, clear mountain streams, and vistas of glacially carved peaks. At the top of the pass sits the Independence Mine State Historical Park, the preserved remains of a gold mining operation that ran from the 1930s through the 1940s, with original buildings still standing in the alpine tundra. In summer, hiking, wildflowers so dense the tundra looks painted, and views of the Alaska Range stretching to the horizon. In winter, world-class backcountry skiing and snow machining, with the pass road opening to snowmobiles once it closes to cars. It is roughly 90 minutes from downtown Anchorage. Most tourists who visit Anchorage don't know it exists. This is a crime. Gem 15, Nome, a gold rush city on the Bering Sea coast where you can still pan for gold on the public beach today. Nome sits on the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula, accessible only by air, and it looks like the edge of the world, because it essentially is. Population roughly 3,700. The Bering Sea is right there. Russia is about 160 miles away. Nome's gold rush of 1899 to 1900 was unlike any other in history, because the gold wasn't in the mountains, it was on the beach. Literally. Gold washed up in the black sand of Nome's beaches, and tens of thousands of prospectors arrived, set up tents in the surf zone, and started scooping. The beach is still public land. You can still pan for gold on Nome's beaches today, legally, for free. People do it every summer. Sometimes they find enough to make it worthwhile. Nome is also the finish line of the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race, the 1,000-mile race from Anchorage across the Alaska wilderness every March. The burled arch on Front Street where mushers finish is one of the iconic images of Alaska. Nome in March during Iditarod Finish Week is one of the most festive, wild, genuinely Alaskan celebrations in the state. Gem 16, Glacier Bay National Park, one of the greatest examples of glacial rebound in the world, and a place where you can watch geological time moving in real time. In 1750, Glacier Bay was almost entirely filled with a massive sheet of ice. The Grand Pacific Glacier and its tributaries covered virtually the entire bay to a depth of thousands of feet. By 1880, the ice had retreated enough that John Muir could sail into the newly exposed water by canoe. Today, the glaciers have retreated 65 miles from their 1750 position. The land, freed from the crushing weight of ice, is still rising, a process called isostatic rebound, at a rate of about 1.5 inches per year. Glacier Bay is literally growing taller as you watch. And the ecology that's followed the retreating ice is extraordinary. Bare rock giving way to pioneering plants, then alder thickets, then Sitka spruce forest. A complete ecological succession playing out across the landscape in human timescales. The wildlife is staggering. Humpback whales feed in the bay in summer. Brown bears, mountain goats, harbor seals on ice floes, bald eagles on every other snag. And at the head of the bay, the remaining glaciers still calve icebergs into the water with a sound like a cathedral collapsing. At Gem 17, Kodiak Island, the Emerald Isle of Alaska, home to the largest bears on Earth and one of the most overlooked destinations in the state. Kodiak Island is the second largest island in the United States, after Hawaii's Big Island, and it looks nothing like what most people imagine when they picture Alaska. The mountains are emerald green, covered in lush grass and alder. The bays are deep and sheltered. The fishing is extraordinary. Kodiak is home to the Kodiak brown bear, the largest subspecies of brown bear in the world, and the largest land carnivore on Earth. Male Kodiaks can weigh over 1,500 pounds and stand 10 feet tall on their hind legs. The island has the highest density of brown bears of any place on the planet, roughly 1 bear per square mile across the Kodiak archipelago. The Kodiak National Wildlife Refuge covers about 1.9 million acres of the island's interior and is managed specifically for the bears and the extraordinary salmon runs that feed them. Bear viewing here, by float plane to remote river systems, is world-class. Kodiak is also a working fishing community, one of the most productive fishing ports in the United States. The combination of bears, salmon, scenery, and genuine Alaskan working culture is unlike anywhere else in the state. Gem 18, Talkeetna, the most perfectly Alaskan small town in existence and the base camp for Denali expeditions. Talkeetna sits at the confluence of 3 rivers, the Talkeetna, Susitna, and Chulitna, about 115 miles north of Anchorage, with a direct clear-day view of Denali. Population, around 900 people. It has a main street of wooden boardwalks, log cabin bars, a handful of legendary restaurants, and an attitude that suggests it knows exactly what it is and has no interest in being anything else. Talkeetna is the primary staging point for Denali climbing expeditions. All climbers must check in here before flying by bush plane to the Kahiltna Glacier Base Camp at 7,200 feet. The Talkeetna air taxi operators run glacier landings for non-climbers too, one of the most spectacular small plane experiences in the world. The town famously elected a cat named Stubbs as its honorary mayor for 20 years, from 1997 until his death in 2017. Stubbs received constituent mail. He made public appearances. He was photographed by tourists from around the world. Talkeetna did this entirely deliberately and without apology. It is that kind of town. Gem 19, Wrangell, Alaska's oldest settlement, home to ancient petroglyphs you can walk to at low tide, and virtually unknown outside Southeast Alaska. The town of Wrangell on Wrangell Island in Southeast Alaska has been continuously inhabited longer than almost any other settlement in Alaska. Occupied by the Tlingit people for thousands of years, before it became the only Alaskan community to have been governed by 4 different nations: Tlingit, Russia, Britain, and the United States. Just north of town, on a public beach, lie the Wrangell petroglyphs, ancient rock carvings of faces, animals, and abstract designs, estimated to be between 1,000 and 8,000 years old. At low tide, you walk down to the beach and they're just there, in the rocks, completely accessible, completely free to visit. No interpretive center between you and them. Just the carvings and the sound and the weight of what it means that someone was here, making art thousands of years ago. Wrangell also has Chief Shakes Island, a tiny island in the harbor accessible by boardwalk, with a traditional Tlingit tribal house and a collection of totem poles that are among the finest in Southeast Alaska. The whole town is a layered, under-visited gem. Gem 20. The Northern Lights, and why Fairbanks, Alaska, is the single best place on Earth to see them. The Aurora Borealis, Northern Lights, can be seen across Alaska, but Fairbanks is in a near-perfect position. It sits directly under the auroral oval, the ring around the magnetic pole where auroral activity is most intense and most frequent, and it has enough clear, dark nights to make seeing the aurora essentially reliable between late August and early April. On a strong night, the display is indescribable, not the faint green smear you see in most photos. Curtains of green and purple, and pink and white moving across the entire sky simultaneously, folding and pulsing and twisting. Sometimes so bright you can read by them, sometimes accompanied by a faint crackling sound that scientists debate whether humans can actually hear or merely imagine they hear. The best viewing is away from city lights, the Chena Hot Springs area, the Cleary Summit Overlook, or any high point outside Fairbanks on a clear night. Temperature, often -20 to -40, worth every degree of cold. There is nothing else like it. Nothing. It is the most spectacular natural light show on the planet, and it happens over Alaska reliably, repeatedly, all winter long. Gems 21 to 35. History, culture, and wildly Alaskan things. Gem number 21. The Iditarod Trail. Sled dog race covers roughly 1,000 miles from Anchorage to Nome across some of the most brutal terrain and weather in the world. Through mountain passes, across frozen rivers, along the coast of the Bering Sea. Mushers and their teams of dogs run continuously, resting in brief intervals for 8 to 15 days. The race commemorates the 1925 serum run to Nome, when a diphtheria outbreak threatened the city, and 20 mushers and 150 dogs relayed life-saving antitoxin across Alaska in 5.5 days through a blizzard. Balto, the lead dog on the final leg, became a national hero. His statue is in Central Park. Gem number 22. Utqiagvik, Barrow, is the northernmost city in the United States, sitting at 71.3 degrees north latitude on the Arctic Ocean. The nearest major city, Fairbanks, is 500 miles away. There are no roads connecting Utqiagvik to the rest of Alaska. Everything, food, fuel, supplies, arrive by plane or barge. The permafrost here is over 1,300 feet deep. The community is predominantly Inupiat, and the culture of Arctic subsistence, whale hunting, seal hunting, berry picking, remains deeply central to life here. This is what living at the top of the world actually looks like. Gem number 23. The Alaska Pipeline, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System, TAPS, stretches 800 miles from Prudhoe Bay on the Arctic Ocean to Valdez on the Gulf of Alaska. It was built between 1974 and 1977 at a cost of over $8 billion, the most expensive privately funded construction project in history at the time. The pipeline crosses 3 mountain ranges, 800 rivers and streams, and hundreds of miles of permafrost. It moves up to 2.1 million barrels of oil per day and has transported over 18 billion barrels since opening. It is one of the greatest engineering achievements of the 20th century. GEM number 24. Juneau, the state capital of Alaska, is one of the most unusual capital cities in the United States for one simple reason. It cannot be reached by road. There are no highways connecting Juneau to the rest of Alaska or to Canada. The only ways in are by plane or by ferry. The capital of one of the largest states in the country is completely inaccessible by land. Juneau sits between Gastineau Channel and the Juneau Icefield, the second largest ice field in North America. And the mountains are so steep and the terrain so rugged that road construction has never been feasible. This is a fact that Juneau residents find either charming or deeply inconvenient, depending on the day. Gem number 25. Skagway in southeast Alaska is a perfectly preserved gold rush town that looks almost exactly as it did in 1898, when it was the main gateway to the Klondike Gold Rush and briefly the largest city in Alaska. The White Pass and Yukon Route Railroad, a narrow-gauge line built in 1898 through some of the most treacherous terrain on Earth, still runs today as a heritage railway. Riding it is one of the finest rail experiences in North America, clinging to cliff faces, crossing gorges on century-old trestles, climbing to the White Pass summit at 2,865 feet through fog and hanging glaciers. Gem number 26. The Exxon Valdez oil spill on March 24, 1989, remains one of the most significant environmental disasters in American history, and its legacy is still visible in Prince William Sound today. The tanker struck Bligh Reef and spilled 11 million gallons of crude oil across over 1,300 miles of coastline. The spill killed hundreds of thousands of seabirds, thousands of sea otters, hundreds of harbor seals, and 22 orcas. Scientists still find oil in the sediment of some Prince William Sound beaches. The Sound has recovered significantly, but the memory of that disaster and its lessons about environmental stewardship have shaped Alaska policy and culture for 35 years. GM number 27. Ketchikan in southeast Alaska is known as the salmon capital of the world and the totem pole capital of the world, and both claims hold up. Ketchikan Creek runs directly through the middle of town, and in late summer, the creek is so full of returning salmon that you can watch them from the town bridge. Totem Bite State, Historical Park, and the Saxman Native Village near Ketchikan contain the finest collections of standing totem poles in the world, including poles up to 80 feet tall that document clan histories, stories, and events in the deeply sophisticated visual language of the Tlingit people. GM number 28. The Alaska Marine Highway System is a 3,500-mile network of state-run ferries connecting coastal communities from Bellingham, Washington to Dutch Harbor in the Aleutians. It is the primary transportation system for dozens of communities that have no road access. The ferries are large, comfortable, and affordable, and riding this system through Southeast Alaska's Inside Passage is one of the most beautiful and underrated travel experiences in North America. You can bring your car. You can camp on the deck. You can watch glaciers, whales, and rainforest coast slide past for days. It costs a fraction of a cruise ship and is 1,000 times more interesting. Gem number 29. Denali National Park's one road, the 92-mile Denali Park Road, is accessible to private vehicles only for the first 15 miles. Beyond that, you must take a park bus. The bus system exists specifically to limit human impact on the wilderness, and the result is that Denali's wildlife is remarkably habituated to the buses and almost completely unaffected by the presence of humans. You will see grizzlies at 50 yards, wolves crossing the road, moose feeding in ponds, Dall sheep on ridgelines. The bus is not a compromise. The bus is the experience. Gem number 30. The Matanuska-Susitna Valley north of Anchorage is famous for producing the largest vegetables in the world, and the reason is pure physics. The extremely long summer days, up to 20 hours of sunlight, allow plants to photosynthesize continuously, resulting in vegetables of extraordinary size. The Alaska State Fair in Palmer each August regularly features cabbages over 100 pounds, zucchinis the size of small children, and pumpkins approaching 2,000 pounds. The record cabbage, 138.25 pounds. It was a cabbage, one cabbage. It weighed 138 pounds. Gem number 31. The Chilkoot Trail from Skagway to the Yukon is one of the most historically significant hiking trails in North America, and one of the best. The 33-mile route follows the exact path taken by an estimated 100,000 prospectors during the Klondike Gold Rush of 1897 to 98. The trail climbs over the Chilkoot Pass at 3,500 feet, the Golden Stairs, where prospectors hauled their gear up a nearly vertical snow slope. The NPS and Parks Canada jointly manage the trail today. You still find Gold Rush artifacts, cans, tools, boots, half buried in the tundra, right where they were dropped over 125 years ago. Gem number 32. Sitka's Sea Life. Discovery cruise in the surrounding waters of Sitka Sound contain one of the most productive marine ecosystems in the Pacific. Sea otters, nearly hunted to extinction during the Russian fur trade era, with fewer than 2,000 remaining in the entire Pacific by 1911, have rebounded to over 100,000 animals along the Alaska coast. Watching a raft of sea otters floating on their backs cracking urchins on their chests, grooming their pups, in the shadow of a dormant volcano in a southeast Alaska rainforest, is the kind of moment that makes you grateful conservation efforts work. Gem number 33. Unhinged National Monument and Preserve is the least visited unit of the entire national park system, receiving fewer than 200 visitors per year. It contains a 10-mile-wide volcanic caldera formed by a massive eruption approximately 3,500 years ago, one of the largest volcanic events in the history of the North Pacific. Inside the caldera, a volcanic crater lake, hot springs, lava flows, and a landscape that looks like another planet. Getting there requires a bush plane and significant backcountry experience. It is one of the most surreal, unexplored landscapes in the United States. Gem number 34. The community of Whittier, Alaska is connected to the outside world by a single 2.5-mile tunnel through the Chugach Mountains, the Anton Anderson Memorial Tunnel, which is the longest highway tunnel in North America. For a period, it was the only road access to Whittier. About 200 permanent residents live there, most of them in a single 14-story building called Begich Towers that contains apartments, a church, a bed and breakfast, a laundromat, a police station, and a medical clinic. The building is basically the entire town. Whittier is simultaneously one of the strangest and most practical communities in Alaska. Gem number 35. The Wood-Tikchik State Park in Western Alaska is the largest state park in the United States, covering 1.6 million acres of pristine lake systems, rivers, and mountains. For comparison, Yellowstone National Park covers about 2.2 million acres, but Wood-Tikchik is a state park. It has no roads, no established campgrounds, no trails. Access is by float plane only. The fishing for rainbow trout, Arctic char, and 5 species of Pacific salmon is considered by serious anglers to be among the finest freshwater fishing in the world. Almost no one outside Alaska has heard of it. Gems 36 to 50. The truly unhinged Alaska facts. Gem number 36. Alaska pays its residents to live there. The Alaska Permanent Fund Dividend is an annual payment made to every eligible Alaskan resident, funded by oil revenues deposited into the state's permanent fund. In good years, the dividend has exceeded $2,000 per person. A family of 4 can receive $8,000 plus in a single year simply for being Alaska residents. The fund currently holds over $70 billion. Alaska is the only state that pays its citizens a dividend for existing within its borders. It is a real-world experiment in sovereign wealth distribution, and it has been running since 1982. GEM number 37. Alaska has more licensed pilots per capita than any other state. Roughly 1 in every 58 Alaskans holds a pilot's license, compared to about 1 in 500 nationally. This is not a hobby statistic. In Alaska, where vast distances separate communities with no road connections, bush planes are infrastructure. The Cessna 185 and the de Havilland Beaver are as common in rural Alaska as pickup trucks in rural Texas. Bush pilots navigate by landmarks, land on gravel bars and frozen lakes, and carry everything from groceries to moose quarters to emergency medical supplies. They are among the most skilled aviators in the world. Gem number 38. Alaska has more coastline than the entire rest of the United States combined, 33,904 miles. The lower 48 plus Hawaii have approximately 12,000 miles of coastline. Alaska has nearly 3 times that amount by itself. This is because of the extraordinary complexity of Southeast Alaska's fjords and islands, the Aleutian Chain's 1,200-mile arc, and the massive Gulf and Arctic Ocean coastlines. If you walked Alaska's coastline at a pace of 20 miles per day, it would take you 4.5 years to complete. Gem number 39. The 1964 Alaska earthquake, the Good Friday earthquake, was the second most powerful earthquake ever recorded in human history, measuring 9.2 on the Richter scale. It lasted approximately 4 minutes and 38 seconds, an eternity in seismic terms. The quake raised some areas of land by 38 feet and dropped others by 8 feet. It triggered tsunamis that traveled across the Pacific, killing people in Oregon, California, and Hawaii. In Valdez, the entire waterfront district slid into the sea. The earthquake reshaped Alaska's geography in less than 5 minutes. Gem number 40. Alaska has more volcanoes than all other U.S. states combined. There are over 130 volcanoes in Alaska, about 90 of which are considered potentially active. The Aleutian Volcanic Arc is one of the most active on Earth. Augustine Volcano in Cook Inlet, visible from Anchorage on clear days, has erupted multiple times in the past century. Redoubt Volcano, also visible from Anchorage, erupted in 1989, sending ash clouds that caused a Boeing 747 to lose all 4 engines at 27,000 feet before the crew managed to restart them. The plane glided for several minutes before power was restored. Every passenger survived. Gem number 41. Alaska has no statewide sales tax and no statewide income tax, funded largely by oil revenues. Most Alaska municipalities also have no property tax. The combination of no state income tax, no sales tax, and a cash dividend paid to residents makes Alaska's tax situation unlike any other state. The trade-off: everything in Alaska is extraordinarily expensive. A gallon of milk in a rural Alaska village can cost $10 to $15. A bag of groceries that cost $50 in the lower 48 might cost $150 in Bethel or Kotzebue. The economics of remoteness are real. Gem number 42. The Bering Land Bridge, the land connection between Asia and North America that existed when sea levels were lower during the last ice age, is now commemorated in Bering Land Bridge National Preserve on the Seward Peninsula. About 13,000 to 15,000 years ago, the ancestors of all indigenous peoples of the Americas crossed this bridge, a landmass up to 1,000 miles wide at its broadest, from Siberia into Alaska. The entire human population of the Western Hemisphere descends from people who walked through what is now Alaska. This ground is the door to the New World. Gem number 43. Moose in Alaska are enormous, and they are everywhere. The Alaska Yukon moose is the largest subspecies of moose in the world. Bulls can stand 7.5 feet at the shoulder and weigh over 1,600 pounds. They are taller than most horses. In Anchorage, a city of 290,000 people, moose routinely walk through neighborhoods, eat shrubs in people's yards, lie down in school parking lots, and block traffic. The city has a moose in neighborhood alert system. Moose injure more people in Alaska annually than bears do. They are beautiful, enormous, and utterly unconcerned with your schedule. Gem number 44. The aurora borealis has a sister phenomenon, the aurora australis. Both are caused by charged particles from the sun interacting with Earth's magnetic field, producing light in the upper atmosphere over both polar regions simultaneously. On a night of intense solar activity, auroras occur at both poles at the exact same time, mirrored. Alaska is one of the best places on Earth to witness the northern version, and in particularly powerful solar events, the aurora can be seen as far south as Texas and Florida. The northern lights over Alaska during a strong geomagnetic storm are a planetary phenomenon, visible from space. Gem number 45. Russian Orthodox Christianity has deep roots in Alaska, introduced by Russian missionaries and traders in the late 1700s. Today, dozens of Russian Orthodox churches dot the Alaska coastline in remote native villages, on islands accessible only by float plane, in communities of a few hundred people who have maintained this faith for over 200 years. The Holy Assumption of the Virgin Mary, Russian Orthodox Church in Kenai, is the oldest the oldest Russian Orthodox church on American soil, built in 1895 on a site used for worship since 1841. The intersection of Russian imperial history, indigenous Alaskan culture, and Orthodox Christianity is one of the most unique and least told American stories. Gem number 46. Alaska's salmon runs are one of the great natural spectacles on Earth, and they underpin an entire ecosystem. 5 species of Pacific salmon, Chinook, king, coho, silver, sockeye red, chum dog, and pink humpy, return from the ocean to their natal streams to spawn and die, feeding brown bears, black bears, wolves, eagles, ravens, Dolly Varden trout, and even the trees themselves, whose nitrogen uptake spikes near salmon streams due to decomposing fish carcasses. Salmon literally grow the forest. The entire southeast Alaska rainforest exists, in part, because of salmon. Gem number 47. The Klondike Gold Rush of 1897 to 98 transformed Alaska, but the gold was actually in Canada's Yukon Territory. Alaska was simply the gateway. Skagway, Daya, Juneau, and other Alaskan communities boomed as staging points. Hundreds of thousands of people poured into the region. Most found no gold. Many died on the trail. The ones who got rich were often the merchants and outfitters who sold supplies to the prospectors. A young man named Jefferson Randolph Soapy Smith ran Skagway as a criminal empire during the rush, extorting prospectors, running crooked gambling operations, and bribing officials, until he was shot dead in a gunfight on the Skagway Wharf in 1898. His grave is a tourist attraction. GM number 48. Point Hope, Tikigaq in Inupiaq, is one of the oldest continuously inhabited sites in the Western Hemisphere. Archaeological evidence shows human occupation here for at least 2,000 years, and some estimates push it significantly higher. The community of Point Hope, on a triangular spit of land jutting into the Chukchi Sea, continues the tradition of bowhead whale hunting, an ancient, culturally essential practice that is carefully managed and deeply meaningful to the Inupiat people. The bowhead whale has been the foundation of this culture for millennia. Everything, the food, the tools, the ceremonies, and the community is organized around the whale. Gem number 49. Alaska's grizzly bears don't actually hibernate, not in the true biological sense. They enter a state called torpor, during which their body temperature drops only slightly, their heart rate slows, and they can be aroused relatively easily. A true hibernator, like a ground squirrel, has a body temperature that drops near freezing and cannot be easily awakened. A bear in torpor is alert enough to give birth, nurse cubs, and respond to disturbance. When a bear emerges in spring, having gone 5 to 7 months without eating, drinking, or urinating, it has maintained most of its muscle mass and is physiologically ready to run at 35 miles per hour almost immediately. Bears have better off-season fitness than most athletes. And the last one, Gem 50, the one I want to leave you with. Alaska was purchased by the United States from Russia on March 30th, 1867, for $7.2 million, about 2 cents per acre. Secretary of State William Seward negotiated the deal and was widely mocked for it. The press called it Seward's folly, Seward's icebox, a waste of money, a frozen wilderness of no value. In the century and a half since, Alaska has produced hundreds of billions of dollars in oil revenue. Its fishing industry generates over $6 billion per year, providing more than 60% of the nation's seafood. It contains the most biologically productive marine ecosystems in the Northern Hemisphere. It is home to the greatest wildlife concentrations remaining in North America. It holds untold mineral wealth. It guards the Arctic approaches of the continent. It is the strategic cornerstone of American presence in the Pacific. And beyond the economics, beyond all the resources and the revenues and the strategic value, it has Denali, rising 18,000 feet from its base. It has 100,000 glaciers. It has brown bears that weigh 1,500 pounds catching salmon in their mouths at waterfalls. It has the northern lights turning the entire sky into a cathedral of moving light. It has rivers no road has ever reached, valleys no person has ever walked, coastline that would take 4.5 years to walk at 20 miles a day. It has the oldest continuously inhabited sites in the Western Hemisphere. It has the land bridge through which all the people of the Americas first arrived. It is the first American ground. The door to the New World, Seward's Folly, at 2 cents an acre. That's Alaska. 50 gems, 1 state. And I could spend 50 more without touching the surface. Alaska is the last great wild place in America. Maybe on the continent. It is vast beyond comprehension, Beautiful, beyond description, and remote enough that it still has the power to remind you how small we are and how extraordinary the world is when we leave it alone. Drop your favorite Alaska gem in the comments. Tell me what I missed. If you've been somewhere on this list, I want to hear about it. Like this video if it gave you something. Subscribe if you want more, and share it with someone who's never thought seriously about Alaska.